Hello, welcome to the Robotech panel at the Hey, we're going to be doing a preview of the stuff we're doing, some of the stuff we're doing upcoming for the 30th anniversary of Robotech, because as you know, spring of next year, Robotech will be 30 years old. So by this time, you know, it's going to have kids and probably have like a 2.5 bedroom home and be settling down into like a middle class right now. But anyway,
Don't forget the burnt coffee.
Burnt coffee? Oh yeah. Okay, I see the reference. That was
Max and Miriam.
awesome. But back to our regular program. I want to introduce myself. I'm Tommy Newman at Harmony Gold USA. I've worked on the more recent iterations of Robotech, such as the Shadow Chronicles and Love Live Live. And I've also got here with me Steve Yoon, who's also worked with me on these projects. And Steve, that's our partner in New Media. He's more or less well known as our liaison on our website. And our newest addition here, Doug. Oh, we don't have a page for him yet. Darn. We'll have to fix that. But Douglas has worked on our most recent projects, such as Love Live Live, and he works also on the digital video editing side, managing our materials in-house. And so, happy to welcome Douglas here. Now, before I get too deep into Robotech, I want to let you guys know about a project that we actually have wrapping up right now. Greg Snegoff, who's long worked on Robotech. If you watch the end credits of Robotech, he's the first name that comes up among the staff writers. So he was one of the lead writers on the original Robotech television series. Him and Art White-Chamberlain, having the person who worked with Carl Macek on Robotech the Sentinels, they worked together on a new anime series for us. And this is now called, we have been calling it under the working title 7 Seas, but it's been retitled Deep Sea 7. And this is has a theme of climate change, and what if the coastal cities of the world were underwater, and there were bounty hunters and treasure seekers who were basically raiding the underwater cities for the treasures that lie within. And this is being produced in partnership with Lionforge Entertainment, and this is co-written by Greg Snegoff and Art White-Chamberlain. And we actually have some of the members of the original Robotech voice cast working on it. And how many of you were at San Diego Comic-Con a few weeks ago? Or months ago? Months ago now. So, all right, so not all of you. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you a short snippet of the scenes that were completed for Deep Sea 7. It's actually, the thing I really like about this is the adaptation to English is actually really good. Greg and Art White really worked hard to make the humor work in English, and it comes across pretty snappy. So here we go. They're actually wrapping up production on this. They're at the post-production stage. They've actually finished the voice recording on this. So we're hoping to have that wrapped up for probably around this holiday season. I wish I could show you more, but since we're limited for time, we're going to move on forward back on to the topic of Robotech. For Robotech role-playing games, this is actually something big we're bringing to this show. How many of you follow the Palladium material, the classic Palladium games? Okay, they had a great resurgence with bringing the classic Palladium games from the 80s back, and they've adapted it to include newer aspects of Robotech, such as the Shadow Chronicles. And that was a hit for them, but one of the things that they wanted to get back into the business of doing was RPG miniatures. This was something that they did in very limited numbers in the late 90s, and these are one of the hardest to find collectibles. If you got one of these, you've got a real rare item here. But when they did well with the reissues of the Robotech RPGs in their new version of the RPG Robotech universe, we expanded their license to include figures, but they also had a situation where they had a little bit of a scandal a few years back where somebody had embezzled a lot of money and they had to raise capital to get into manufacturing of miniatures. And so they started a Kickstarter, and they worked together with Ninja Division. And when they launched it, initially they were just going to try to do start with the basic box set here with about a couple dozen figures and they were trying to raise about $70,000 for it. But they ended up raising $1.4 million, and with all the stretch goals, instead of doing just a few dozen figures, they ended up doing a whole bunch more than that. Now, the drawback was because of the volume of product that they had to ship out, they delayed their initial release from, it was supposed to be last holiday season. So now, finally, boxes are coming out. Some people were lucky enough to be in the first wave. I know the second wave has been a little bit delayed because the boat was delayed because of some fire in a Hong Kong port. I mean, don't worry, the games didn't burn down or some other boat or something like that. Yeah, in the port. So that boat's been delayed, but it is supposed to be on its way to the U.S. And so,
the second boat's already here.
The second boat made it here?
And the fire was at the Long Beach.
Oh, I thought it was in Hong Kong. Oh, I thought it was stuck in Hong Kong.
No, they shipped it out by truck. It should be on schedule.
Okay, more power to Doug. He kept up to date on it more than I did. So.
Well, he even wants to stay on schedule, so they paid extra money to ship it on truck rather than trim to get it there in time.
All right, so there you go. So it's an actual. Wow, it's in better shape than I thought. So all right, more power to Palladium. So people who haven't gotten their shipment yet, that second batch is supposed to be going out any day now. And so, yeah. So the successful stretch goals that they've had include all sorts of rare mecha, and all these little add-ons. So they've got a lot of. Okay, here's an example of one of the shipping containers with all the product. So this is what everybody's waiting for. So all those brown boxes contain these goodies here. And if you haven't gotten your order yet, come down to the Robotech X fan booth after show and see it close up in person, or here after the panel. We got a little bit of time. And so here's Kevin Sambita, the founder of Palladium, showing off the product that they've got. So this is from the first wave, and so we have one of the samples from the first wave here, so you can see it in person. So it's really awesome stuff. If you look at it, they've done the tooling to a really nice level of detail. And because you can put it together like a model kit, basically you can pose the figures how you like it. Actually, this has also started a little bit of a cottage industry of people basically making for you super fancy, aftermarket. So if you go to those RPG conventions, there's a lot of people getting involved in this. Now, in terms of toys, people ask us, well, what about if I'm too lazy to put this together? Nice finished toys that I can get for a good price. The product price point that's really hit well with the fans is the 1/100 scale. Because I know that there was the 155 scale, which was like upwards of, $80 or more, and they go into aftermarket for hundreds of bucks. And, I know in this economic climate, some people are crying uncle. So, at the 1/100 scale, which is a little smaller, these toys are priced to move. Even with, added cards and everything, they go for under $30. So it's a good price point, and we've got really nice classy packaging for the 30th anniversary. First wave of this product is coming out this holiday season. I know George had these photos taken from Hong Kong. This, I know for a fact, isn't here yet, no fire or anything like that, but he's having it shipped here. He's going to try to get it in for New York Comic Con if any of you happen to be going to New York. But this is the photography of the shipment before it makes its way here. So this is fresh from Toynami. I don't think any photography of this is out on the web yet. Huh? Yeah, sure, go ahead. Take pictures, put it on the web, retweet it. That's fine with me. So this is really nice. They're transformable. And for folks who are really worried about breaking those toys because of the intricacy of it, these are held together by friction so that, they've got ball joints and stuff. So if you push a joint too far, it'll actually just pop out. You can pop it back in instead of worrying about breaking it. So that's the nice thing about the way they built these. So, and also to add to that, they're getting back into these little tiny. Remember the little tiny figurines from the early 2000s? So they're getting back into that. People want little impulse buy, inexpensive items. So these items, the street price of these are probably expected to be under about $10 or so. They did a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive for about $15. They were doing these exclusive early bird skull eaters, and they just blew up. I mean, it was nuts at San Diego Comic-Con. If you come to Robotech Expand, they have one of the specimens there. But because of the success of that, they're doing all these blind boxes. So it's going to be like a little bit of a surprise, and we know that there's going to be an aftermarket of people like buying, trading these on eBay back and forth. But this is also coming this holiday season, and they've moved. Yeah, this is what one of the individual boxes look like, and they've been moving towards away from traditional sculpt prototyping, and they're moving towards CAD modeling and prototyping. And because of this, they can turn around unique designs much more quickly than before. And so in this box, like people are going, oh my goodness, how many varieties of Veritex can we get, right? What about the Destroids? Well, this time they're actually designing Destroids and battle pods, all super deformed, so they're really cute into this mix. So this is what's coming out. So this is the CAD design that they did for the super deformed battle pod. And here are the So they're going to be awesome. Yeah, isn't that totally adorable? So because these are all CAD built, the sculpt, I guess the design, we really like them a lot. So. All right, Robotech novels. How many of you are McKinney fans? McKinney fans. All right. So for those of you who think these novels are getting harder to find, especially the in-between novels, we recently did an update to the ebooks where we actually added appendices to all of them. And so for people who are like, there used to be like just these flame wars on the internet about, your McKinneyist, your original TV show, continuity, hounds, whatever. Now we have the appendices where you can actually make comparisons about how the universes are different or they converge. And when we even went as far as doing editorial work where we were doing editorial changes, like spelling changes and stuff like that, we were not doing that to change the continuity of the books. We were actually doing that so the books were consistent to themselves. Like Jonathan Wolf's name was actually changing spelling within the book series themselves. So we were actually making that more consistent. And so if anybody's really suspicious about these changes, look in the appendices and we'll actually even tell you what was changed in the book. So that it's all transparent, it's all out in the public, and people can make comparisons about where book continuity versus television continuity is slightly different. And Carl was actually very accepting and understanding about this, because he says that it's different media, different different audiences, and this is something I like to say is, nobody has the right to tell you how to enjoy something. That's all up to you, how you enjoy it. And the term that Carl would use is, he says, it's all organic. It doesn't fit together perfectly, but you still enjoy it as a whole, and really that's what matters. So, so now that that's out and that did well, we've decided to go ahead and do the work on the rest of the books. So this supports all the major media players, such as your Apple iDevices, the Amazon Kindle devices, and the Google eBooks. And the in-between books that we now added into the mix are the really hard to find ones, like the Centralia Rebellion, the story in between the first and second generation. So we've got that ebook out, and all the Sentinels books. So the folks who felt like the Sentinel story was uncompleted, all the Sentinel stories actually play out to completion in the Sentinels novel, so you can get those in ebook form, and also the Before the End of the Storm, which covers the in-between story between the second and third generation. And for those of you who really want to get way out there, the continuation of the Sentinels in the novel universe, End of the Circle. This story is kind of considered kind of apocryphal because this was actually put out when Carl had already left the company, and so he said, yeah, well, it was based on my notes, but it kind of came together a little bit differently than I expected. So for those of you who are really into sci-fi novels, this would be kind of like the splinter of the mind's eye of the Robotech universe. If you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, you get it. Oh yeah. Yeah. How many of you are familiar with Taylor theorem, infinite series, and so forth? No, man. High school, college. Okay. So in the end of the circle. Wait, am I spoiling something? Is that okay if I spoil something from the end of the circle?
Well, you're rewriting a 20-year-old book.
All right. Okay, so the big reveal is that Zor and Minmay got together and their baby was Zor.
What?
Yeah, I know. Well, Rem is. Yeah. So the theory is if you have an infinite series, right? If you're always if Zor plus Minmay approaching Minmay, so in the end Zor is Minmay.
What?
All right. Never mind. All right.
Because it goes back to...
Yeah, we haven't crossed that bridge in Latin America, so I'm guessing whichever censor didn't like Lancer in Latin America would have an issue with that, who knows. So, well, times change, this is 20 years later, right?
So, he married himself.
Huh?
He married himself and had himself as a baby.
I haven't seen all, we just opened a can of fan fiction worms here.
I'm confused. Time travel gives me a headache.
So, speaking of Robotech comics, how many of you have been following Robotech Voltron comics lately? Yeah! Alright, I do acknowledge it's a little bit harder to find because Dynamite is not as big a publisher as DC, so it's harder to find in specialty stores.
Comicsology, man.
That's right! He beat me to it! Yes, so Comicsology, the crossover comic series now available for Dynamite in association with DC Comics. It's a throwback to the original 80s. We really wanted this to be a throwback series, you know. And so the important topics covered in the series was Monster and Robots, of course, mullets. So, you know, there were Voltron comics that were kind of trying to soft reboot it, where they were kind of embarrassed of certain aspects of Voltron, like the mice, and we were like, no, we're proud of that stuff. In fact, we want to work that into the story. So, this was a lot of fun. To give you a little bit of background about this, when Robotech comics were coming out from DC, we actually got different proposals for crossovers. Like, wait, wouldn't this be an awesome crossover idea? And with some of the submissions, we were kind of like, ugh, you know. And so there were a lot of ideas that were submitted that really were, you know. But when Voltron was submitted, we were like, oh, we're not sure how that would work. Because one of the things about Voltron is Voltron's universe is more magical. And Robotech likes to have one foot a little bit more grounded in reality, right? I mean, giant tunas aside. So, you know, we didn't know exactly how we were going to make the universes work with one another until I had a discussion with Jeremy Correa, who was the creative director over at World Events, you know, on Voltron. And we were like, hey, this would be the way you could do a really good character study, is Robotech doesn't have elements of magic in the universe normally. And so when you do inject an unknown variable into the Robotech universe, how does everybody respond? Like, how do you know, like, all of a sudden they're used to Robeasts, and then you have the SDF-1 kicking everybody's ass, and you go, wow, that sounds awesome, until you discover, how does the SDF-1, you know, even though it's a technological marvel, deal with an unknown, like, how did they deal with black magic invading their ship? Hey, now it suddenly gets a little bit more interesting. So, the artist that worked on it with us, Elmer Damaso, absolutely awesome. And we got to study more about it. We got to do really good character studies where we went into the backgrounds of the characters of both universes. So, how many of you are Voltron fans? All right, that's great. So, you know, you hear about how they had to look for Voltron after the fact. Like, something happened to Voltron and they had to find all the pieces. Like, what happened to Voltron? And why is the guy who was supposed to be in charge of Voltron, King Alfor, from a long time ago, why is this guy dead? What bad thing happened to him? So we actually got to build up a lot of the backstory in the Voltron universe, which was great for Voltron fans. And so you get to see young Allura, you get to see Koran. If any of you know about Minister Koran and the fact that he had this missing son, and so there's all this backstory being built up in this, and mice, of course. Not ashamed of the mice. Mice are awesome. And for those of you who are interested in the Robotech universe and followed the Robotech comics back in the 80s, remember Robotech the graphic novel, anyone?
Yeah.
All right. So why does Rick Hunter call Roy Fokker his brother when they're very obviously from different families? You know, how did this happen? And so we actually cover the backstory of the families where Roy and Rick's fathers were actually in the service together. And they actually had a pact where if something happened to one of them, they would look after one another's sons. And so that's actually how their families came together. And so here you actually see a snippet of their backstory, which dates back to Operation Desert Storm. And so, and they were based off of the USS Kenosha.
So Roy was Goose, huh?
Huh? Roy?
Oh, he's Goose.
Oh, no, Roy's dad was Goose. Yes. Yes.
And what's Roy's dad's name? What's Roy's dad's name?
Oh, his call, they had call signs. So everyone knows that Rick Hunter's dad's call sign was Pops. He was always called Pops Hunter. And so Roy's dad's call sign was Tweety. I don't know if anybody remembers Tweety, the term from the old graphic novel, or if you remember. His yellow plane was nicknamed Tweety. Okay. So this was a lot of fun working with Bill Spangler, who has a big track record working on Robotech comics. And with Bill, it was really nice. I didn't have to communicate any backstory to him. He knew everything inside out. It was really a joy to work with him. So, you know, and all the fanboy details, he was good at that stuff. So this was a great experience. And this is also from Elmer. He did really cool mecha designs. This is a super giant fast pack that was designed for Voltron, because Voltron stands about 200 feet tall, so it was much, much larger than a Veritech, and so he had to custom design some stuff for that. And here's some cover art from Robotech Voltron. And this is the SDF-1 in the Voltron universe. And so actually you'll see some of the things change, where here in this alternate universe, Roy grows old and becomes a senior officer, you know, hence the eye patch, and Rick is actually missing from the universe, so he's kind of turned the tables. So, and here we have Chiron. Chiron, of course, is always a backstabber. He is trying to steal the Lion technology. So, the last issue just recently came out earlier this month, and so this is all available on Comixology. It's a really good read. I highly recommend it. And I know they've discounted the first issue to get people sucked in, so give that a try. Now, people have asked us, what about Udon? Udon has traditionally worked with us as our partner on the Robotech comics, because they would usually work with DC Comics on the comics that came out before, you know, all the way from the Stars to Prelude to Shadow Chronicles. What are they doing now? Well, they are working on new deluxe art books. There were a lot of people complaining, how come Robotech Art 1 has been out of print all these years? Remember Robotech Art 1? Mm-hmm. Well, they're working on it now. And Udon has a really good track record. They've done the translation for lots of art books for Japanese games and anime titles. And so they have a really good wealth of experience for this. So I'm happy to entrust them with the work on this. So look for this next year, just in time for the 30th anniversary.